It starts with the way so many stories in the 90-Day Fiancé universe do, with curiosity. A new face, a new relationship, and a question that refuses to go away. But this time it's different. Because when longtime fans of 90-Day Fiancé began noticing subtle clues across social media, they weren't just asking who Cortney Reardanz was dating. They were asking why this relationship feels so different from anything we've seen before. An older man, a quieter presence, a dynamic that, depending on who you ask, is either refreshingly mature or raising serious eyebrows. Is this a genuine love story unfolding away from the cameras? Or is there more beneath the surface, something fans haven't fully pieced together yet? Tonight, we're going beyond the headlines, beyond the Instagram posts, and beyond the speculation to uncover what we actually know, what's being said, and what it could all mean. Because in the world of reality TV, especially one as unpredictable as 90-Day Fiancé, nothing is ever just what it seems. To understand why this relationship is generating so much attention, you have to go back, not just to Cortney's latest posts, but to where her story first captured the public's attention. Cortney Reardanz was introduced to audiences through 90-Day Fiancé before the 90 Days, a spin-off that has become known for showcasing the raw, often chaotic beginnings of international relationships. From the very beginning, Cortney stood out, not as the loudest personality in the room, but as someone whose story unfolded in a way that felt unpredictable, sometimes confusing, and at times deeply relatable. Her early storyline, particularly her relationship with Antonio Millan, became one of those arcs that fans still revisit years later. It was a relationship marked by cultural differences, mismatched expectations, and a communication gap that seemed to widen with every episode. Viewers watched as Cortney navigated unfamiliar territory in Spain, often appearing uncertain, vulnerable, and at times overwhelmed. What made her story resonate wasn't just the relationship itself, it was the way it unfolded. There was no polished narrative, no clear direction. Instead, it felt real in a way that many reality TV storylines strive for but rarely achieve. After her initial appearance, Cortney's presence in the 90-Day Fiancé universe continued through updates, appearances, and social media engagement. She became part of the broader ecosystem of cast members whose lives continued to be followed long after the cameras stopped rolling. And that's where things get interesting. Because unlike some cast members who lean heavily into the spotlight, Cortney's public persona has often felt more understated. She shares glimpses of her life, travel, relationships, personal moments, but rarely in a way that fully explains the bigger picture. That ambiguity has always been part of her appeal. And now, it's part of the mystery surrounding her new relationship. The latest chapter in Cortney Reardanz's story didn't begin with a dramatic TV reveal or a headline-making announcement. Instead, it started quietly, almost subtly, through social media activity that longtime fans have learned to watch closely. Photos, captions, background details. According to what fans and online observers have pieced together, Cortney has been spending time with a new partner, a man noticeably older than her, whose presence in her life has gradually become more visible. Reports suggest that the relationship did not emerge overnight. Instead, it appears to have developed over time, with early hints showing up in posts that didn't initially draw widespread attention. But as the frequency of these appearances increased, so did the speculation. Who is he? What does he do? And perhaps most importantly, how serious is this relationship? Publicly available information about Cortney's new boyfriend remains limited. Unlike many reality TV figures who step into the spotlight with clear intentions, this individual appears to maintain a lower profile. That alone has added to the intrigue. Some fans have pointed to the apparent age difference as a defining feature of the relationship. While age gap relationships are not uncommon, both within and outside the 90-Day Fiancé universe, they often become focal points for discussion, particularly when they involve public figures. In Cortney's case, the dynamic seems to have sparked a wide range of reactions, from curiosity to cautious optimism to outright skepticism. What we do know, based on available information, is that Cortney appears comfortable sharing moments of this relationship, even if she hasn't fully addressed it in a detailed, public way. And in the world of reality TV, that kind of selective transparency can be just as powerful as a full disclosure. From a broader perspective, Cortney Reardanz's new relationship fits into a larger pattern that experts in media, relationships, and reality television have been observing for years. First, there's the psychological dimension. Reality TV participants often experience relationships in a unique context, one where personal connections are shaped not only by emotions, but also by public perception. The transition from a televised relationship to a private one can be significant, and in many cases, individuals seek different qualities in partners after their initial experiences. An older partner, for example, may represent stability, maturity, or a different kind of emotional grounding, particularly for someone who has navigated the unpredictability of a reality TV relationship. Then there's the media angle. Shows like 90 Day Fiancé thrive on storytelling, but those stories don't end when the episodes do. Instead, they evolve in real time, often through social media, where cast members maintain direct connections with their audiences. Cortney's approach, sharing just enough to keep fans engaged without fully explaining every detail, reflects a strategy that media analysts say can actually increase audience interest. The less that's explicitly stated, the more viewers speculate. And speculation, in the digital age, is currency. From a cultural standpoint, age gap relationships continue to be a topic of debate in the United States. While widely accepted in many contexts, they still carry certain stereotypes and assumptions, particularly when they involve public figures. Experts note that these perceptions are often shaped by broader societal narratives, ideas about power dynamics, life stages, and expectations, which may or may not reflect the reality of any given relationship. In Cortney's case, the lack of detailed information means that much of the conversation is being driven by interpretation rather than confirmed facts. If there's one place where the story has truly come alive, it's online. Across platforms, fans of 90 Day Fiancé have been dissecting every available detail, from the tone of Cortney's posts to the appearances of her new partner in photos and videos. Some reactions have been supportive, with viewers expressing happiness for Cortney and suggesting that she appears more settled than in previous relationships. Others, however, have raised questions. Is the relationship genuine? Is it moving too fast? And how does the age difference factor into the dynamic? What's striking is not just the volume of the conversation, but the diversity of perspectives. In many ways, this reflects the broader 90 Day Fiancé audience, a group that is deeply engaged, highly observant, and unafraid to share opinions. Trending discussions have highlighted everything from body language analysis to comparisons with past relationships, creating a kind of crowdsourced narrative that continues to evolve in real time. And yet, despite all the speculation, one thing remains consistent. Cortney herself has not fully addressed the conversation. That silence, whether intentional or simply a matter of personal choice, has only added to the intrigue. So where does the story go from here? That's the question everyone is asking. For Cortney Reardanz, this relationship could represent a new phase, one that is less defined by reality TV narratives and more by personal choice. If the relationship continues, it may eventually become more public, whether through social media, interviews, or even a return to television. And that possibility is something fans are already speculating about. Could this be a future storyline within the 90 Day Fiancé universe? Or will it remain a private chapter, unfolding outside the cameras? From an industry perspective, relationships like this often serve as a bridge between past and future appearances. Cast members who maintain public interest are more likely to be invited back, particularly when their personal lives continue to generate conversation. At the same time, there's also the possibility that Cortney is intentionally choosing a different path, one that prioritizes privacy over publicity. If that's the case, it would mark a notable shift from the trajectory we've seen with many reality TV personalities. Beyond the speculation, the analysis, and the social media debates, there's a more human side to this story, one that often gets lost in the noise. At its core, this is about a person navigating relationships in a very public world. For many viewers, Cortney's journey has always felt relatable, even when her circumstances were unique. The uncertainty, the hope, the desire to find the right connection, these are experiences that resonate far beyond reality television. An older partner, a quieter relationship, a shift away from past patterns, these could all reflect a personal evolution, one that isn't meant to be fully understood by an audience. And that's an important reminder. Because while fans may feel invested, the reality is that not every detail is meant for public consumption. Sometimes what we're seeing is just a glimpse, a small part of a much larger story. As this story continues to unfold, one thing is certain, the conversation isn't going anywhere. So now we want to hear from you. What do you think about Cortney Reardanz's new relationship? Do you see this as a positive new chapter, or do you have questions about the dynamic? Join the discussion in the comments below, because your perspective is part of what makes these stories come alive. If you found this deep dive insightful, make sure to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and stay with us as we continue to bring you the stories that everyone is talking about with the depth, clarity, and context you won't find anywhere else. Because in a world full of headlines, the real story is always deeper. And we're just getting started. As the conversation around Cortney Reardanz continues to intensify, attention inevitably shifts to the figure at the center of the speculation, the man himself. And this is where the story becomes even more complex. Because unlike many partners who enter the 90-day fiancé spotlight, often with public profiles, social media followings, or business ventures ready to be scrutinized, Cortney's new boyfriend appears, at least for now, to exist largely outside that ecosystem. There are no widely confirmed interviews, no detailed public statements, no clear effort to step into the reality TV spotlight. And in today's media landscape, that absence is unusual. According to what can be observed through Cortney's posts and fan analysis, the man appears older, composed, and noticeably more reserved than many of the personalities viewers have come to associate with the franchise. He is not present as someone chasing attention. If anything, his presence suggests the opposite, a preference for privacy, or at least a measured approach to public exposure. That alone has sparked two very different interpretations. On one hand, some viewers see this as a sign of stability, a relationship that isn't built for cameras, but for real life. They point to Cortney's demeanor in recent appearances, suggesting that she seems more grounded. From past seasons to spin-offs, couples with significant age differences have often found themselves under a microscope. Fans analyze motivations, question intentions, and debate whether such relationships are rooted in genuine connection or influenced by external factors. But experts caution against oversimplification. Every relationship is different, and while age can influence dynamics, it does not define them. Still, within the context of 90-Day Fiancé, history matters. It shapes expectations, it influences perception, and it creates a framework through which new relationships are judged, fairly or not. For Cortney, that means her current relationship is not being viewed in isolation. It's being compared, contrasted, and contextualized within a much larger narrative point. One of the most intriguing aspects of this story isn't what's being said, it's what isn't. Cortney Reardanz has not offered a comprehensive explanation of her relationship. There have been no in-depth interviews, no detailed posts addressing the speculation, no attempt to control the narrative in the way many public figures often do. And that raises an important question. Is this silence intentional? Media analysts often point to what's known as the controlled ambiguity strategy, a way of maintaining public interest by revealing just enough to keep audiences engaged, while withholding enough to keep them guessing. It's a strategy that can be incredibly effective, particularly in the age of social media, where engagement is driven as much by questions as it is by answers. But there's another possibility, that this isn't a strategy at all. That Cortney is simply choosing to live her life without feeling the need to explain every detail to an audience, even one that has followed her journey for years. If that's the case, it represents a subtle but significant shift in how reality TV personalities interact with their fans. Because for a long time, the expectation has been access, total access, and when that access is limited, it changes the dynamic. This brings us to a deeper issue, one that extends far beyond the single story. What does it mean to be a public figure in a world where privacy is increasingly difficult to maintain? For cast members of 90 Day Fiancé, this question is particularly complex. Their initial exposure comes from a format that thrives on openness, on sharing intimate details, emotional moments, and personal conflicts. But once the cameras stop rolling, they are left to navigate a reality that is far less defined. Some choose to remain fully public, continuing to share their lives in detail. Others pull back, establishing boundaries that can sometimes frustrate fans who feel invested in their stories. Cortney appears to be somewhere in between. She hasn't disappeared from the public eye, but she hasn't fully embraced it either. And that middle ground is where much of the current tension exists. Because for viewers, the lack of clarity creates a sense of unfinished narrative, and unfinished narratives are inherently compelling. As the story continues to unfold, it's impossible to ignore the role that fan culture is playing. Online communities dedicated to 90 Day Fiancé have become hubs of analysis, speculation, and at times, intense scrutiny. Users dissect posts, compare timelines, and attempt to piece together a coherent narrative from limited information. In many ways, this reflects a broader trend in modern media consumption. Audiences are no longer passive. They are active participants, investigators, commentators, and storytellers in their own right. But this level of engagement comes with challenges. Where is the line between curiosity and intrusion? Between analysis and assumption? Between public interest and personal privacy? In Cortney's case, these questions are particularly relevant because the information available is incomplete. And when information is incomplete, interpretation becomes subjective. Looking ahead, there are several possible directions this story could take. One possibility is that the relationship becomes more public over time. Cortney may choose to share more details, introduce her partner more formally to her audience, or even address the speculation directly. Another possibility is that the relationship remains largely private, a personal chapter that unfolds outside the traditional reality TV narrative. There's also the potential for a return to television. The 90 Day Fiancé has a long history of revisiting past cast members, particularly when their lives take new and interesting turns. A new relationship, especially one that is already generating conversation, could easily become part of a future storyline. But that decision would ultimately depend on multiple factors: personal choice, network interest, and the evolving dynamics of the relationship itself. At first glance, this might seem like just another reality TV update, another relationship, another round of speculation. But the reason it's capturing attention goes deeper than that. It taps into universal themes: change, growth, uncertainty, the search for connection. For viewers who have followed Cortney Reardanz from her early days on 90 Day Fiancé, this moment feels like part of a larger journey, one that continues to evolve in ways that are both familiar and unexpected. And perhaps that's the real story here. Not just who Cortney is dating, but how her life, like so many others in the reality TV world, continues to unfold in ways that blur the line between public narrative and